We're going to be talking about customer experience right now, and I think one of the key things we need to do is, in my opening remarks, we spoke about a key word, apart from trust. There was one other word, which is the source of all customer experience. Do you remember? Taking you back to that session? Sorry? Ethics? Ethics for sure, but that's not the word I was looking for. Trust is there, ethics is there, humanity is there. There are two other words that I put there. Love and empathy. Empathy is the source of all emotion. Empathy is the starting point of customer service. Empathy is that ability to understand, connect, relate, and humanize before any kind of customer experience can start. So it's really, really important when we look at an AI world is that we wear a lens of empathy and then we see through that lens of how the world works. Because if we see it through the lens of technical capability and stuff like that, we'll actually end up forgetting. And I'm sure our panelists are going to talk about some of that element also. So empathy is one of the key things. The second terms of, the word I used was love, is as we go into the future with this, all of the technologies that are available to us, love and humanity becomes an integral part because I have a little piece of presentation I'll do at the end of this session perhaps, which actually talks about how we can engage AI and overlay it with all the human relationships and human factors to build about, to bring love, connection, emotion, intuition, engagement, love, affection. All of these things come into that customer experience. This is what I'd like to start as a thought for you guys to go into this session. So, let me introduce our guests, Dr. Satyam, Sabri, and Ram Khosla. There are three super senior, super qualified people for this particular session. Dr. Satyam, can you just start with about a 1 or 2 minute introduction about who you are and what is your view of customer experience?
Good morning, good afternoon. I don't know, what time is it? I have a permanent jet lag, so I don't know what time zone we are in. I am Dr. Satyam Priyadarshi. I am the Chief Data Scientist for Halliburton and a Technology Fellow. Halliburton is an oil and services company. Many of you have heard of it. Let's see how many of you have heard Halliburton. Okay. But I'm not from oil and gas industry. I've been 5 years into that industry. Before that, I spent many years as an academic professor and also consulted for almost all industry verticals in the space of analytics, big data, AI, whatever you want to use the term now, right? Done that for almost all industries, transformed some industries, sold some companies, things like that. And with that experience, what I can tell you is that when you're transforming businesses, customer experience is the #1 factor that allows you to actually be successful in it, whether it is in a short-term transformation or it's a continuous transformation that is now as a part of the Industry 4.0 era.
Thank you, Dr. Satyam. Sabri, you had your session. Now you can have an opportunity to engage with the people on this one.
Indeed. So, well, indeed, I'm Sabri. I lead the R&D department at Uranova in Belgium. So we are an IT company providing consultancy. So we help customers in telecom, pharma, retail, banking, insurance to go through digital transformation using AI, big data, and machine learning. Well, for me, one really important aspect of the customer experience will be the way we interact with customer. Today, there is two major differences. So there is more and more, I think, real-time interaction. We directly engage. We have this customer engagement that is more and more interactive. And that has really two impacts. We need to be more reactive, more real-time. And in terms of architecture, it changed a lot of things under the hood. So from a technical side, there is a lot of change that the enterprise should now go into.
Thank you, Sabri. So.
I'm Ram Khosla. I'm the CIO for our division here in Asia, Middle East, North Africa. PepsiCo is a $65 billion business. You'll hear our products around Frito-Lay, Quaker, Pepsi. What's interesting about the customer experience is it's really about, we're a consumer product company. And for us, our consumers are constantly shifting. And you'll see that now where we are looking at what is happening to, their behavior in shopping. How are they looking at shopping, from a traditional going through the supermarket down to actually ordering online. So that level of customer engagement where we had probably a stronger foothold where we owned the aisle front where the customers would go in, pick our products, and we would have a chance to really engage with them. That's starting to change a bit. And so for us, we really need to understand how do we become more intimate with our customers and how do we do it on an online and offline world. And I think that's one of the biggest key questions that most CPGs are going through right now.
Thank you for that. Now, I'm going to, as you have seen already, I'm playful and I'm controversial. So I'm going to be asking difficult questions. I hope it's okay with people here, right? You enjoy that, right? Okay, thank you. I have the crowd supporting you. Well, is customer experience about selling more stuff to people? Because that's how, from a cynical consumer, no, skeptical consumer, that's what I see. You're finding fancy new stuff, nice little gadgets, lovely little experiences to buy more stuff. Are you creating stuff to buy stuff, for us to buy stuff?
Well, that's...
And trapping all of these people into buying more things?
I think the point is to create a sustainable business. If you buy something which is not really wanted by the customer, he will realize that one day or another. So if you would like to create really a sustainable interaction, a sustainable customer engagement, you need to understand what he needs, what he or she needs. How we can, it's not a question of selling, it's a question of creating a life which is more comfortable. This is really the view. And most of the companies and most of the industries I've been working so far are really in that mindset. How can I just help my customer to have a better life?
Pepsi is a master at consumer-facing interaction, and you're a master brand leader. How do you connect the humanity and the technology piece coming together to provide that experience and to provide some sort of sustainability?
Yeah. So first, our goal is to delight our consumers, right? Our consumers are the face it's kind of what we drive our overall brands and what we're trying to achieve from a business side. We have the concept, and I think Google termed it it's micro moments, and we have these things called demand moments. It's really where the consumer at any point in the day is going through either, for example, they might be looking at snacks on the go, and for them it's convenience. How do they maybe they'll skip breakfast because their commute is so long, so they want to have something that they can eat and drink. And so for us, we want to capture that moment. We understand what the consumer is looking for, and also how do we achieve that space, that demand moment for them. So for us, that connection with the consumer, the brand, and the ability to understand that those moments is very specific, is very clear on what our strategy is. How do we actually achieve more? Again, selling is a big piece of it, but really delighting our consumers is one of our biggest aspects of our.
Okay. I'm going to come back to that customer engagement piece. Dr. Satyam, what are your thoughts in terms of are we just selling or are we creating experiences at a gut level that is fundamentally changing the game?
I think the great customer experience is about customer engagement for a long term. That means you create the value on an ongoing basis. So if you are, as they call it, sell stuff like as seen on TV, that only lasts for a very short period of time. But of course, it's a business model that people can do. But in today's era, especially when I think in the morning we were talking about that the data is the foundation of it, of the industry 4.0. I think the only way you create the engagement is through what we call co-innovation. I think he alluded to that word, but it's through co-innovation model with the customer.
You talk about long-term. Is long-term very yesterday in terms of brand association? Because people right now are becoming more and more, less loyal and more fickle in terms of trying different aspects. So I'll throw that ball in the air and sort of say, the new customer, the new consumer is now less loyal, they'll change a bank account like that, they'll change a credit card like that, they'll change a restaurant like that. However, there are some habit-forming activities also. So how do you balance that?
I think if you look in B2C concept and then B2B concept, you have to think about customer experience in both those tracks, right?
Okay.
And B2C certainly is much shorter range than a B2B engagement, right? No bigger businesses or especially critical infrastructure companies can switch and transform so fast as a consumer who can switch from one bank to another, right? But I think in both the cases, the way we actually leverage the technology is actually providing a long-term engagement for both of them.
Okay. So this was just the starting point, just for us to get warmed up. We'd like to make the session as interactive as possible. So I'm going to go to the audience. But while I'm with the audience, I'm going to ask perhaps Rom a difficult question from the audience. So I'm sitting in the audience and I'm asking you this question. And the question basically is, you are creating addiction for young people. Sugar is a major killer, and snacking in a movie theater or something like that creates obesity, diabetes. This is the third largest country of diabetes in the world, type 1 and type 2 diabetes. How do you keep selling more to them on the basis of doing funky, fancy new things?
Tough question. Okay. I will tell you that when we look at our portfolio of products, we have different categorizations.
Sure.
We have a fun for you product, which are products that it's more around indulgence. Things that you want to do. You want to have a snack in the middle of the night. Then we have better for you, right? And then we have good for you. So the good for you are like the Quaker products, which are heart healthy products.
Sure.
Better for you, our Gatorade products, which is around fueling and energizing your sports. So for us, the three types of categories are really specific around what type of demand moments that exist for the consumers. Our expectation is not to, set expectations around growing obesity, et cetera, but we are looking at things that, part of around salts. How do we reduce the amount of salt? So how do we do things that are, that help, for example, for us farmers and where we get our potatoes and our crops. How do we ensure that the quality of the crops are to the satisfaction of the consumers? So all of those things are a big part of our strategy, but ultimately the data that comes down to it is the consumers provide us feedback on what products they look at and what they enjoy consuming.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that question. I think the key thing here is the world is changing. We're becoming more and more aware of health. They are customer facing. So if we demand whatever from them, I'm sure they will respond. And I think that is part of the conversation that we need to have with large organizations, successful organizations with you. Any questions early questions that have come up from this side? Yes, sir. Make them short, make them count, because I want to connect the dots as we go forward.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, everyone. My question is more about future generation. As we have a great professor also here. See, we all know that technology, we are all in technology world. We love the technology, but on the negative side, as you rightly said, addiction also coming towards the technology and all. My question is, as a father of 3 kids who are into teenage also, maybe professor can advise or answer this. Future generation, I know they are more going towards mobile phones, usage and all. And also, as I saw previous slide, like the robotics may rule the world. But as a lead or create and those qualities if the children is preparing with, future generation may sustain. So is there any advice for the future generation? Because we have to learn from history means our future generation is nothing but our next generation. So how do you suggest they to go in the right direction so that they become a good human beings as well as sustainable in the society which is going to come in future?
Thank you very much. So advice to our young future generation. What do we do in terms of consuming? They are our major consumers. The Z generation has a completely new way of thinking, as we all know. So what is your advice to his children? Any of you?
I think
our children.
I think that's the reality, that the machines will take over part of our life. I think what we need to learn is how to live with them, right? But if you look at all the past industrial revolutions, technology has evolved in various ways, and we have learned to live with it. So I think even with the future generation, how do they get trained, how do they leverage the technology for a better life. I think those things where academics will have to play a role, industry will have to play a role, the government has a role to play. So all these organizations will have to start thinking, how do we implement these things, right? I think in the morning, Dr. Tariq was talking about ethics and all those things, but they have to be contextualized, right, for every place. But I think, yes, future generation is more advanced than us in many ways. I think when the question that came on sugar, right, but I think if you look at the future generation, they are actually more knowledgeable about it than compared to us, right? So I think, yes, the technology will help them how to navigate that future, but I think the world will be all machine-man combination. Probably will happen in our lifetime. I think somebody put a slide in the morning about 2030 versus 2040. So I think 2030 could be the time when man-machine integration will take place. And especially if we look in the critical infrastructure or energy sector, that has to take place.
Thank you.
Especially for the remote areas.
Thank you very much. We'll come back to the young people thing. I have a couple of slides which I will also share. Sir, question.
Hi, my name is Imran Saleh. I manage technology in shopping malls. My question is more towards the retail element of it. You have different generations like millennials and Generation Z. And how does the customer experience, how can you fluctuate the customer experience to attract the different generations coming forward as well? I mean, today you have kids with mobile phones who have the shopping power as well.
Thank you. So he's talking about segmentation of the markets. I spoke earlier on of silver tsunami. So the ones who have crossed 50, millennials, Z generation. How do you do your segmentation, your market segmentation and your messaging, Ron?
So we have probably a majority of our, again, it depends on geography. Here in Asia, Middle East, North Africa, we have, I would say, probably more of a developed market, say in China, where everyone, I think 750 million people are truly online on mobile phones. For them, we are on the platform with WeChat, and we engage with our consumers through play, through games, and they access through our frontline online stores. In cases where we're emerging, we're usually engaging actually in the retail shops, right? The retail shops are really one of the most important things. As that shifts over time, we had an example in the U.S. where the retail shop where we actually, place our products, our merchandisers place our products on the shelves. What's happening is a lot of folks are actually doing click and collect, which will go into the retail shop, and they're using that retail shop as really just a warehouse, where the products get pulled from the shelf and into baskets where they get picked up. So they're never really experiencing the actual, the aisle engagement. They don't look at the end caps. They're actually just there to pick up what they specifically want. So for us, the changing behavior of consumers is starting to determine how do we want to engage with them, because if it's really more of just a warehouse versus a retail, will the retail change as well? Because I think, that's not really up to just just PepsiCo. It's really our retail partners that really have to determine how are they looking to engage with the consumers.
One of the big trends in the retail is the omni-channel experience. Yeah. We spoke in the morning about AR and VR and totally immersive experiences. So all of those things are going to be there. Any other question that you'd like to share with us? Okay. In terms of different kinds of products, let's just take hospitality as a product. Hospitality is changing a lot. You are a component of that hospitality piece. You're providing the technology and you're providing thought leadership. We're in this beautiful hotel. How is this consumer experience changing for us? What are the new things we need to be looking for in a hospitality space? Sabri.
Good question. It really depends on the kind of industry. I really believe that and this is what I was talking about in terms of interaction and engagement. And I think the customer engagement now is coming more and more difficult and complex, because it's not only responding to a customer, it's in real time understanding who he is, what he wants, and what kind of answer we should formulate for him. And that means that you need to use a lot of data in real time for answering this kind of question. I think that now there is really two parts in that, and I mean, when I speak about customer engagement, I mean all the different things you need to do when you speak about customer engagement. It's about knowing the customer, knowing the DNA of the customer, knowing who he is, knowing as well how you can answer to what he requests now. And I think that, well, this is probably the most complex things.
It's complex, but I think the whole hospitality experience is changing. I was presenting in Oman, about 2 months ago, and we were talking about technology, and there was a Oman 2040, the transformation program for that, and I was presenting on that. And in the end, I made a statement, and so with respect, I'm making the statement, and I'll share this with you. I said, the beauty of Oman is its culture, its heritage, it's the essence of what Oman is. I said Oman should be more Oman and more natural rather than more tech. In other words, go back to the basics. And Oman's a beautiful country. 20 years from now, the luxury holiday will be an uncluttered holiday in Oman rather than a cluttered holiday in Dubai. You see what I'm saying? You where I'm going? It's too much tech versus pure culture and heritage. What are your thoughts, sir?
I think hospitality industry can take advantage of algorithms, as I call it, right, to reduce the the concept I want to say is like keep the privacy as much as possible, but at the same time give them the freedom to enjoy the nature, right? And that balance can be done actually very well. Right now, if you go to a hotel, you check in, you got to like wait for 15 minutes before you are checked in. Those things could be actually eliminated because most people who are traveling, especially people like me, you fly out to 14 hours and then you wait there for 15 minutes just to get a key. That doesn't work, right?
Yeah, sure.
But that could be actually done leveraging the technology because you're already pre-checked in, right? Things like that. But at the same time, providing the right interaction, like what's an experience? What is an experience that you are having as a business person, as a personal, whether you are in a personal visit? That experience could be actually incorporated into the algorithms. And that is where the hospitality industry will change. And I think people are already trying that.
Great. Ron, thoughts on that? Because you're sort of linked to that industry in terms of genuine, heartfelt experiences versus, fast food or fast drink.
Yeah, the way I look at this is, I think of consumers myself being, a traveler. It is about convenience, and convenience is a big part of whether you want to return, whether or not the quality of the stays there. I traveled recently to Japan, and literally my phone I checked in, and it also was a lock for the hotel room. So I didn't necessarily have to pick up a key. I didn't necessarily have to, so the check-in was really automatic, so they knew what my room was. What was impressive about that was they also had suggestions on things that they thought I would like. I wasn't there, I was there for business, so it was interesting. For us, though, when we think about just understanding our customers, consumers, which is true for hospitality, it's trying to understand the basics of the data that we collect, specifically, and again, it's all about personas, the persona of the individual. Is it a family, is it a business person? And that persona represents what we believe the offering should be. And trying to get that targeted information around the data from external, internal, and then trying to understand how does that person, what will they enjoy? That's the tricky part, obviously, because the persona, a person could be a father and a business person and a leisure traveler. So it's not like one person, but.
I'm going to change the tonality a little bit. I have 4 or 5 slides that I'd like to share,
okay.
and they will be fun. This is, if you can just switch it on, please. Okay. And the session is about 4 or 5 minutes. It's time to think differently, and I'm going to pull it back into our conversation. Like, we need to turn things upside down, actually turn them on our heads. One of them is that our brain, and the way our brain actually works, is actually the final frontier left, because everything else is being controlled. Do you know that you can detect lies by putting an MRI onto the brain, and also telepathy? So, Pepsi is going to be selling in the future using telepathy. And these are things that are happening today. You can actually upload memories today. These tests are being done. So effectively what you do is as the memory comes in, it goes through your hippocampus and it actually gets registered in your brain. So we can actually start influencing customer experience by recording memories. Kodak lost the plot. They were supposed to be in the business of memories. They forgot. Instagram won because they understood and realized that. They were in the business of memories. We can now capture lifetime memories. This is crazy stuff. And my mother, she's the first stages of dementia, and I keep, to me, that last piece is really important, that she could have all her memories captured and be transferred to her at any point in time from the cloud, probably on her mobile phone. So it starts changing the experience that we have. Another one is photographing a dream. This is scary, because we can have really, really dodgy, naughty dreams, but a brain MRI can actually start capturing the picture of your dreams. This is happening now. And I'm sharing this with you because I think future consumer experience and customer experience will be affected by how we start playing with people's brains. Because advertising, media is a lot about playing with our brains and our thinking. So we can get images like that. This is a digital immortality. So all of my dreams, all of my thoughts, all of my memories, can be put together in a digital hologram stuff. So when I've passed away, my children and my grandchildren would be able to talk to me as if I was a live person. So the future will move beyond photographs into digital immortality and how that whole thing comes together. You see where I'm going with this is that the whole experience is changing because of our cognitive aspects of it. This is a little study that we do on creativity versus age. Most people think that as we grow older, we become less creative. Would you agree with that? Not really? Well, okay. Well, this was a study done. Here's a little toddler. Let me share this with you. How, on a scale of 1 to 100, is she very creative, medium, or low? Very creative? Yeah? She is at 95%. Then what do all of you do? You have children, right? What do? You send them to school. Guess what happens? 50%. Then you work really, really, really hard, save all your money, and send them to the best university in the world. Guess what happens? 25%. And ladies and gentlemen, all of us, we are at a handsome 10%. So we were born geniuses, and we dumbed ourselves down throughout our lives. This is reversible, so that's the good news. So the reason I'm sharing this with you, again, going back to a consumer experience, is that we are being processed and programmed. A couple of more things, and then we go back into the interaction. These are some of, when I'm traveling all over the world, people ask me, what sort of degrees do we need to have? What sort of things, new qualifications do we need to have? These are the new qualifications, not accountant, not lawyer, not even a doctor. You're looking at anthropologists, zoologists, social scientists, and all of these kinds of things. These are the new degrees of the future. This is how this whole thing comes together. Now, this is what makes us human. So when we get into consumer experiences, technology and humanity, how it's merging together. I think that is the key. And so, what we're saying is what shouldn't be automated with AI are these kinds of things. So while I'm here, Doctor, what do you think about that? Let me ask you the question through the context of this slide. Slide says, anything that can be digitized will be, and anything that cannot be, love, emotion, empathy, connection, relevance, humanity, that will be 1,000,000 times more valuable. If this statement is true, in terms of a customer experience concept, what do you think?
I think even emotions will be digitized, not a problem. If you can put the memory on the chip, you might as well be doing emotions as well as on the chip, right? But the question is, can we actually apply it in the right cognitive sense? And so when it comes to customer experience, the cognitive power still remains with the human being, right? So even if you are codified all emotions and your reactions, but I think it will not be a fully cognitive system.
Does everybody understand the 3 levels of artificial intelligence? We are in what is called narrow or simple AI at the moment. We are moving to, in the next 10 to 20 years, into artificial general intelligence, where some of those emotions start becoming part of our understanding in terms of technology. And then artificial superintelligence, which is probably about 30 to 40 years away, which is where that AI can actually replicate human emotion to a very, very great extent, but not entirely. What are your thoughts, sir? Future of Pepsi, 10 years from now,
Yeah, I don't know.
you've got this kind of stuff going on, and you can't automate all of this. How do you change strategy?
Yeah, it's a little bit futurist-wise. I think we're not at that phase. So let's just, we're ultimately part of what we're trying to understand is ultimately the face of consumers, and the consumers will change the landscape that exists out there, and really that's the space we're in. When you think about some of the AI technologies and how that actually changes our workforce, that's a different story. I mean, especially where we look at our front line, where they sell our products. How much they can do within a day, how much more can they do, how they engage with our consumers and our customers. Those are key questions that we go through around how do we get more productivity out of that. So AI for us is really more around enabling our front line, our sales force. Now, when it comes down to, what's the future of PepsiCo as it relates to AI, that's still an unanswered question.
Fair. Has anyone seen this chart? It was a Chinese gentleman, Kai-Fu Lee, of, I think it's called Sinovate Ventures. It's an $18-20 billion company, and this is one of his charts, where he says on the one axis, we have compassion, and on the other axis, we have optimization on the one side, and strategy and creativity on the other side. And these are the comparisons where he's saying how AI and humanity actually emerges. The second slide actually explains this, overlays on it. And what it is that we are becoming more human, and in this complexity, we need to build consumer experience and customer engagement. I'll leave that slide up for us to be able to talk around that, is that repetitive behavior and routine behavior is going to AI anyway, we know that. But what about complex and creative processes? Sabri, because you're doing a lot of complex stuff, you're sort of trying to move towards it. Or are you on the left side of this?
Well, clearly today we are on the left side, on the bottom left, for sure. Well, I think that indeed, if you look at what is done in research and in the state of the art in academics, well, we are going into that direction for sure. And just one remark on that, and on how far should we go in that direction. So for me, it's like it's not because you can do that you have to do that. Today, if you look at genetics or cells today, well, we can create a baby according to what you want. It's not especially because you can do that you will do that. There is ethics worldwide for controlling that. Some countries, however, allow that. So it's really a question of law, ethics, and according to some culture. Now, in terms of technology, coming back to your question, in terms of technology, I think we are clearly going into that direction, and I see already some example. There is a company in Belgium, quite a big one, and they are testing now some chips that are directly connected to the backbone for getting in advance the sign of an epilepsy crisis, which is very good because this is really going to that direction, and this is really good because then the patient can plan what he should do just before a crisis. So I think we are going to the direction and the technology is there.
So, Ram, I was just thinking in terms of how a lot of human elements are coming in terms of compassion and so on the top half of this chart. Yeah. As a global multi-billion-dollar corporation, how are you seeing that the new Z generation is shifting there? AI can give us the analysis, but we can put a layer on top. How are we marrying the two sides? Because I'm still struggling. Is the audience struggling, or is it just me? Yeah. Trying to find this connection, because the next 1 year, 2 year, we can give them a few good things, it's fine, but where are we going with this?
So, and I'll go back to the customer experience. We actually, generally speaking, our marketing teams would interview people, so they would do trials of products, and they would ask them, what do they like about it? Give us, your thoughts, and then they would compile almost like a script of what they were saying. AI right now, and again, we're not sure how far we're headed towards this, but they actually can have cameras that can take this, the semantics of what their facial expression looks like, what they're saying, and the human in the room would actually be more around just gaining more of an oversight, and the actual AI engines actually getting more of the detail around a percent of are they happy, are they satisfied. And just imagine the scale of how much, right now it's within like a small room, but if you can get that with phones and everything else, you can get the full sentiments of the population. So.
Yeah, I mean, but most people, I mean, how many people think the customer is always right? The customer is generally wrong. The customer is generally wrong because they don't even know what they don't know. These folks know what they don't know, which is they can see further ahead. A lot of the products that we bought, like mobile phones, when people were asked about mobile phones, they said, why would we need a mobile phone? I've just got my thing, I'll pick up and call. Why would we need music on a mobile phone? When Apple did for iPhone the initial surveys, nobody wanted music. But they did it anyway, now we can't live without it. So often customers don't know. You are thought leaders. I'm saying, what is the next step rather than today's customers' instant gratification needs? Instant gratification, next 1 or 2 years, everybody will know what they want. They'll follow trends, they'll follow influencers, they'll follow that. That's now. Sports stars, Pepsi's leading in sports and so on. What do they need to do to anticipate 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now and look back from there that these are where the trends are? I mean, it's a trends question.
I think next 3, 4 years, and especially the millennial or Z generation, it's all about completely a customer size of one. It's completely personalized customer experience that they are looking for, especially the Z generation or the millennial generation. They don't care who my neighbor is or what they are buying. They want to buy what they want, right? They can actually analyze the technology. They can see whether it fits into what they are looking for, what their interests are, and do they get the whole package, right? So it will be completely personalized to a single person.
Absolutely.
And that customer segmentation can only come if we actually leverage the AI applications.
Absolutely. In my morning session, I spoke about mass customization versus mass production, which is through 3D printing and so on. So every customer now becomes a source of one, as opposed to chunks and groups, not even age, not even ethnicity. Every customer is unique because they are able to do their unique things. Now, before we go there, I'll leave this what really matters. Any more questions, sir? Please.
I like your style.
Thank you.
I'm going to hit you. Now, I think what we need to look at it, we should look into different dimensions. It's not about technology only. Technology evolution, I think, is not a choice. It's an obligation. We're moving forward. But I'm your customer. One of the areas where we face today, especially on artificial intelligence in terms of automation and so on, and most of the time there's that element of quantification, revenue, how many people, how many hours individual has spent, you've used the automation, you've been able to bring the efficiency to the organization. The challenges which I face today is whenever you initiate this type of discussion, you get the pushback from people. Because everybody will look at it and say, okay, if you bring the machine, then what am I going to do? It means the machine will replace what I do. I understand that transition period where, other type of jobs, like repetitive jobs, will be wiped out, but something else will come up in future, which I went through for quite some time ago, years ago when this ATM machine was introduced, we were pushing back. So I was one of them. I said, then what cashier will do at the bank, and so on, and what. How do you strike the balance in an area or where we see it, there are issues, bigger issues in the organization or in the country in terms of unemployment with the technology evolution?
Yeah, I mean, for us, technology is just an enabler, right? So what we see is a lot of folks that are afraid of technology. They're afraid of what it will take away. But in fact, what it's actually happening is it's giving them more time. Example is, we have a lot of manual, we go back to the transactional aspect, but what we're looking at is actually getting them more time to do analysis, and that analysis is completely value add. We've hired top-notch analysts, from top schools in the US, and are doing things on spreadsheets still, right? And when you look at job satisfaction, is very much about, I need a job, but I don't like what I'm doing. And so if you can take that capability, what they like doing is analysis, and really kind of data mining, and getting the insights, and helping to drive really key decisions. And I think that's the piece that's what's growing. Now, I did want to make a comment about technology as it relates to kids. I was watching my son as he grew up. He went to high school, he's now in college, and what he was open to on technology, and over time what he was closed to. And I see this in my daughter as well, is that they're becoming reclusive in technology because they're afraid of the amount of data being collected. Sure. And so, although we can project in the next few years that we believe we're going to have more data, in fact, we might have less. And so that data becomes more blurry. And I think that's something that I don't think we discuss overall, but I do think that's a big trend, at least with millennials and Z generations.
Thank you. That was brilliant insight, and you're absolutely right. It's a lovely insight because, we feel that that's the trajectory and that's where it's always going to be. No, the kids are saying, no, we don't like this intrusion in our privacy. And Facebook and others, by Mark Zuckerberg's speechwriter, said, we are digital gangsters. So basically, they're collecting data and they're misusing that in terms of their own data bias. So what you were saying is exactly the top left-hand corner here, which is the AI analysis is being done, overlaid by all the human elements around it. So the future jobs are going to be school teachers and companions and wedding planners and people like that. Those are the kinds of great jobs which needs compassion and optimization with technology. And the ones that are here, which are more socially driven, and the ones that are here which are highly complex. Because that cannot go to an AI. So in terms of a customer experience, the question I'm asking more rhetorically is, what are our thoughts in terms of balancing these quadrants in terms of our products and our services going forward? Anybody? Yes, sir. I'll just... Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, hi, my name is Hisham Hamami. I'm from Ministry of Hajj and Umrah. I'm the CIO over there. And we actually have it's very interesting discussion because we have a very unique challenge. We have, our customer base is like 1.5 billion Muslims across the world. Mm-hmm. And it's not a matter of satisfaction. The customer will come either happy, unhappy, they will come. Mm-hmm. So our issue with Vision 2030 is to change that organization from type of government services to hospitality and satisfaction of the customer. So we did multiple surveys, another point is most of our customers are elderly. So they're like, smartphones are foreign to them. They're used to these Nokia, 2G phones that does nothing.
So Silver Tsunami actually works with you. Okay.
So, they're afraid of technology. Any type of thing you say, I want to get information, you guys want to govern us, you want to track us, it's a very sensitive topic worldwide. So there's politics versus technology versus customer.
Sure.
And when we do a survey for satisfaction, people complain through the whole journey. When they leave, everybody give us full mark. So, and you don't know full mark because they're going home, or finally they're getting rid of all or they're actually happy that they did the service.
Would you like to ask a question on this one, or is this just a commentary?
No, you can. I mean, so our question is like, how do you? And I always want to take the Hollywood out of AI. In Hollywood, always in the movies show you AI,
So take Hollywood out of AI.
So how do you actually, would AI, and I know it's the tool to go for, but how do you customize it? And if you're responsible for hospitality, transportation, multiple sectors towards that customer of an interactive customer. I mean, it's a customer that is sort of unreachable in a way.
So he has a very, very easy job, as you can imagine. Very, very easy. Because he has a captive audience of 1.6 billion Muslims who have to go once in their lifetime. You have a captive audience, people drink their drinks and stuff like that. In that audience, how do you measure that? Because he's saying, older generation, moving from you have to come to do Umrah and Hajj, as opposed to this is a hospitality experience? Which is a very interesting question. Thank you for that, sir. I hadn't thought of it. Anybody? Yes.
Well, yeah, so, that's interesting because the first use case about big data was actually in Telefonica in Spain.
That's it.
And what they use actually 2G mobile phone for tracking the location because they were a telecom operator, and they aggregate that by socioeconomic profile because with the bill they can assign, who are the people behind the trajectories, and they sold that to GfK and Nielsen, the retail marketing. So it's a really good example of really basic information from even 2G phone, how you can create a kind of socioeconomic profile of moving people. So that means that you are, of course, for AI, you need to have data. You need to collect them. That's the only requirement that you have. But if someone is collecting that for you, like the telecom operator, well, you can start buying perhaps some data, aggregated, by the way, so there is no privacy issue at all. And you can start a kind of data economy, even if you cannot collect it yourself. You just need to find where you can collect it and how you can get there.
Great.
One small comment. I think AI is such a generic term, and it confuses certainly a different generation of people. I think the value comes in how we educate them, and what is the value that they are going to get if I were to do a certain thing, right? Or whatever way you want to get the information from them. Unless that is told to them, they don't understand it. So just saying, oh, I have a new technology, I'm going to implement and give me all the information, they're not going to do. So we'll tell them what value they are getting as a senior citizen. And that will help them to provide the basic elements of the data that you need to do your better job.
By the way, the senior citizens have become extremely good on WhatsApp. They're becoming almost dangerous on WhatsApp. That's my experience. Anyway, to conclude this session on customer experience, I have a slide here, what really matters. And then I'll request you guys to do a little close. And I put this thing up yesterday. I was making this slide late last night. Family and relationships, that matters. Serving God and self-transcendence, that matters. Developing your potential, that matters. Fulfilling calling and purpose, that matters. Pursuing virtue and meaning and leaving a legacy. These are the things that we are about as human beings. When we talk about customer experiences, why don't we talk about what really matters, as opposed to what product I can sell and what tech I can give? And I know it's a very philosophical conversation that I'm doing, and obviously I've lost the plot. I've become too philosophical in my old age. But the point being is these things matter. Would everybody agree that these things are fundamentally what matter? Yes or no? Please. Let's put pressure on these folks. The ones who haven't raised their hand, obviously, you're on a different planet. We need to have a talk separately, because you need a lot of coaching and counseling. Anyway, no, I'm just teasing you. So, in this context, going back to customer experience, could you give us your final comments on, if this thing is, you can disagree with this is me being soft. How do we package this in the context of our life?
I think, as you said, these things matter, and they certainly matter in a customer engagement very much. Back to the first question, you can sell wares, but that won't last very long. It's the relationship, it's the fulfillment and the growth, whether it's a customer with B2B or B2C. In both cases, that matters.
Super. Sir?
Well, AI is not always there for more consuming. You can have AI for Internet of Energy, for consuming less energy and polluting less. You can have AI on healthcare and pharmaceutical industry. So AI could be there for supporting you exactly in those objectives, actually.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sabri. Sir, final comment.
My final thought is that, I think of this as, go back to those moments, those memories that you called out, where you're really, if you think about consumer products, a lot of it is about instilling memories, right? It's the moment in time where you're enjoying something, or if you're purchasing something, there's a significant amount of that engagement. And I would tell you that understanding the customers, understanding their wants and needs, and ultimately what their value systems are, is very important to how you become a successful business.
Great. So. Wonderful thoughts, wonderful comments. Yeah, I made this session very awkward and difficult. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you guys, thank you for being so sporting and comfortable with it. Ram, Sabri, and Dr. Satyam. Thank you. Big hand for these ladies and gentlemen.